Welcome to episode 29 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing the movie Swiss Army Man, the movie 5 Feet Apart, the documentary The Inventor, and then in video game news, Borderlands 3 was announced, and we got some DLC information as well as the PlayStation and Xbox free games this month. But first, Christian, I watched Swiss Army Man this weekend. Have you either seen this or heard of this movie before?
I haven't seen it. I have heard a lot about it, though.
Yeah, so this is a 2016 movie starring Paul Dano and I think more notably Daniel Radcliffe, aka Harry Potter, and it is a weird movie. The basis of this movie is that Paul Dano, who plays the character Hank, is stranded on an abandoned island, and we cut to him right as he's about to commit suicide. And then eventually Daniel Radcliffe's dead body washes up on the shore, and Daniel Radcliffe plays a character named Manny. And after a bit of prodding, it turns out that the dead body has the ability to fart so forcefully that Hank can ride him like a jet ski, like across the ocean to the mainland. So then, once they get to the mainland, Hank carries Daniel Radcliffe's body with him, and then he starts discovering that Daniel Radcliffe has different abilities that can help him get back to civilization, but also Daniel Radcliffe's dead body starts to come back to life and starts speaking with Hank.
Oh man, this thing is a mess. I remember when this movie first came out, and it was like reading the review of it. You stopped and like, this movie can't be real,
right? Especially with Harry Potter starring in it.
This was one of the first things that he was in after Harry Potter had fully concluded.
Yeah, the things I remember was he was in Equus at one point, which was this play where he showed his dong. And then this. These are like the two things I know him for other than Harry Potter. Speaking of that, have you heard of any of his other powers besides farting?
No, I just knew he had super farts. That was the only thing that I was aware of going in.
So one of the powers is he stores a lot of water in his stomach, and Hank can push him to have water come out. So he always has water. He's drinking it from the dead body. He's able to cock Radcliffe's hands or legs or whatever to chop wood or just do powerful strikes. And then, I mean, the farting one's really ridiculous. I don't know if it's more ridiculous than this, but Radcliffe will get a boner that points them the direction they need to go.
My God, I can't believe this movie's real.
Explaining this movie is one of those things where I was like, this movie has the markings of something I would find hilarious, but it's not really that good.
Yeah, listening to you talk about this, if I didn't know about this in advance, I would think I was having a stroke.
Yeah, it's insane. And it gets weirder. So as they're going to trying to get back to civilization, Hank has his phone that's almost dying, but he has a picture of a girl in it, and we find out that Hank's a little bit of basically a loner sad boy type where he doesn't really talk to girls, he doesn't think anyone, or maybe no one really does seem to love him, he seems alone. And so he fantasizes about this girl he saw on the bus, and he had a picture of her on her phone, and Daniel Radcliffe saw it and became convinced he was in love with her. And as they're going back, Hank starts dressing up as the girl because that helps Daniel Radcliffe get the boner to point them where they need to go. And then it turns into a love story between Hank and Daniel Radcliffe's dead body, where Hank then starts building full recreations of the bus and houses, and they start partying with wooden dolls and stuff, and they kiss, and it's real weird.
Yeah, I wanted to see this. I don't think I still hold that opinion.
That's the thing. I only saw this because Radcliffe was in it, and when I saw the previews, I thought it looked like a really interesting premise. It's on Netflix, so if anyone wants to check it out, it's an hour and 45 minutes. It's it's insane that this is a movie, and I mean, so I'm just going to fully spoil this because I feel like most people are going to watch this. So eventually, like they get attacked by a bear, and then Radcliffe takes Manny, and they wake up, and Daniel Radcliffe had taken Hank to the girl's house that he had fallen in love with. Turns out like the girl has a daughter and like a family, and then Daniel Radcliffe reverts back to a dead body, and then you're left wondering like, oh, was like this all in Hank's mind or whatever, and he eventually kind of loses it and picks up Daniel Radcliffe's dead body and runs into the woods away from everyone, and then you find out that the entire trek from the water that he came up on, like the ocean, and this girl's house is a matter of like 5 minutes. He was basically built a house down in like the ravine at the bottom of her hill in the woods.
Oh my god.
And so you're like, oh, this is like a psychosis thing. And so like he gets back to the ocean and throws Daniel Radcliffe's body in it, and Radcliffe's still not moving, so you're like, okay, this is clearly psychosis. And then at the end, Daniel Radcliffe starts farting again and goes out to sea, and it baffles everyone, and it baffled me.
Well, what kind of a reception did this get? Like, what are the reviews on this movie?
Rotten Tomatoes had this at 70%, which I could not believe.
That's astounding.
I mean, it had a $3 million budget, and it made $5 million, so it made its money back. But it was such a weird movie; it was hard to get through, and I cannot believe this had a theatrical release. Like Daniel Radcliffe is the only reason this got a theatrical release.
I was just gonna say, without seeing it, I can guarantee 2.9 million of that $3 million budget was paying Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, I like. I mean, I can see how they kept it down. Most of it was literally shot in the woods with the furniture they made from tree branches. So it's like one of those things where I thought, like, when I was watching it, I felt like this movie's trying to have a deeper meaning. And if I was in like high school or something, I bet this is one of those like weird movies I would have really enjoyed trying to unpack. But as an adult, I just think it's a slog to get through, and I think any greater meaning they have just gets lost with how weird this is, and the fact that they have Daniel Radcliffe with farting abilities and boner abilities.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I would not recommend this movie. Um, if you really like Daniel Radcliffe, then check it out. Or if this premise was so weird to you that you thought you would have to check it out, it is on Netflix. I feel like this is a How Did This Get Made movie, except they've had Daniel Radcliffe on that show, so I don't know if they would rail on his movie or not. This week, Christian, you saw the newly released 5 Feet Apart. What did you think of it?
All right, so I included this in our outline just because I hadn't seen the couple of things that I wanted to get to this week, and I was like, yeah, I watched this because I was bored on one of the weekday nights. I didn't think I was going to have a whole lot to say about it, but that might not be the case. We'll see. It is a new young adult romance with a twist movie. It's the newest in the weirdly specific line of we're in love even though we're both dying of a terminal disease kind of movie that's been like weirdly popular lately. So it's in the vein of like The Fault in Our Stars, which was a massively popular one a few years ago.
What disease do they have?
They have cystic fibrosis. It follows three characters mainly, and they all have this disease, and they're living together in like the hospital ward that treats it. So it's a lung disease, I guess, that leaves your lungs weakened, or I don't know if they're damaged somehow, but you're basically very susceptible to infection. And so you can't really spend any time close to other people with this disease in case you like swap infections, and then you'll lose a chance for a lung transplant or whatever else is going to go on. I'm of two minds about this movie. So I guess I'll start with the positive, which is I'm glad this movie addressed the disease like it did.
What do you mean by that?
So the main character has like a YouTube channel in the movie where she just talks about the disease and its implications and the different aspects of living with it. And so that was interesting. Like I'd heard of this, I'd heard of cystic fibrosis, but I'd never actually knew what it was or like what any of the implications of the disease actually were. And so it was interesting to get a little bit of a dive into that. And so the movie does kind of raise awareness, which is good. If for no other reason than I like learning things. But really everything else is just kind of flat. So this is at its core. So I guess I'll move from there into the negative then. This is at its core another movie like all the others. Like I had said, it's in this weirdly specific subgenre that's sprung up. And so there's been Fault in Our Stars. There was a movie called Everything, Everything. There was The Walk to Remember, Love and Other Drugs, Moulin Rouge. Like these are all movies about we can't be together because one or both of us is dying from something.
Wait, you're putting Moulin, like the 2000s Moulin Rouge is in that category?
Yeah, I mean she has tuberculosis, right? And that's why they can't be together anymore.
Yeah, I guess like that's not what springs to my mind though when you say like this.
Yeah, I mean I guess that one's a reach, but it was like I was struggling to come up with like I knew there was a bunch of them lately, and that was on the list that I'd found about this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's
gotcha.
right.
Okay, sorry. I was just like, what?
Anyway, so this is kind of like a teenage wish fulfillment fantasy movie where the kid knows everything about themselves and about life, and they're 100% sure what they're going to want 10, 15 years from now, even though they don't really know anything about anything. And I feel this way about a lot of movies where it centers around like teenagers who are really just so sure of themselves. And as a teenager who is super sure of himself, I can confirm you don't know anything about what you're talking about when you're this age. It drives me crazy. So the nurse character in this is borderline vilified a couple of times because she's just trying to keep these two kids apart, because if they touch, they could like inadvertently kill each other basically, or he could kill her is I guess the more accurate, because he has this infection that she doesn't, and if she catches it, she loses her chance at a lung transplant.
Yeah, and it's one of those instances where I'm sure in the movie they're like, "Oh, we just want to touch once," but it's like when you're in a relationship, you just don't touch the person one time and it's done. Like you're going to eventually, you're playing the odds, and you're eventually going to get that.
Yeah, and so they're like, we can be together, we just won't touch, or we won't be close. So the movie's called 5 Feet Apart because they're not allowed to be within 6 feet of each other, but she decides that she's going to steal a foot back. And so they're going to be 5 feet apart forever, I guess, is the plan. And so the nurse keeps trying to keep them apart because she wants them not to die. And for that, she's painted as like a half antagonist in the movie, which is very frustrating.
So, do they learn from this? Because this sounds like a dangerous lesson to be teaching people. I'm sure if you have cystic fibrosis, you know the dangers and whatnot, but it just seems like a dangerous lesson to be pushing.
I'm gonna say not really. Like, I guess like without getting like too spoilery, one of them kind of figures out the right way to handle this situation and kind of takes control, and the other one is just kind of left like, I don't know why it had to be this way. But yeah, it was frustrating in a lot of parts. Like, kids, listen to your parents when they tell you to chill out about stuff, because nothing's as important as it seems like it is in the moment, ever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment. It's just like hard. I think that's one of those things you just gotta live through and then look back on and be like cringe at yourself for.
Yeah, like this is a movie where this situation would never happen because the parents would be there being like, "No, we're going to move you to another hospital if you think that you're going to have this boyfriend with this disease. Like we're not going to let you kill each other." but the parents in this movie are, the mom's in it maybe 5 minutes, and the dad's in it less than 1. So the parents are basically completely absent, which leaves, like I said, the naysayer to be the nurse, who they spend the entire movie trying to circumvent and like dodge.
Jeez. It's one of those things like, what if you killed the other person? You'd feel horrible.
Yep. And yeah, like I said, that's kind of where it comes down at the end is like, oh man, I can't believe we were this dumb. And so the one person just kind of is like, peace. And the other one's like, I can't believe he thinks we're being dumb. It was a lot. On the whole, I would not really recommend this. I guess if you're into this kind of a movie, you'll probably really enjoy it. So the Rotten Tomatoes kind of reflects that sentiment. It's a 54% from the critics and an 80% from the audience, which is a huge gap. But yeah, I'm not really surprised by that at all.
I am surprised that Rotten Tomatoes has Swiss Army Man higher than this.
Yeah, that's the much bigger surprise. But yeah, I think 54% is probably about what this deserves. That might even be a little generous. But the 80%, I'm sure it's coming from like teenage girls and their moms who just came and watched this because it was what it was. Like it's The Fault in Our Stars. It's everything. It's just the same plot all over again. And it did have Cole Sprouse, who I wasn't aware was as popular as he is. I think he's in Riverdale. And so that had a big draw, just crowd size wise.
I was going to say, I've heard of him before, but I could not place what he was in off the top of my head. Also directed by a guy that nothing really to his name.
As a kid, Cole Sprouse was one of the twins in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Okay, that's why I know him, because I think I saw some meme about him ripping on someone. But yeah, that makes sense. Because when you said that name, I was like, I feel like he has a Justin Bieber mop top.
Yes, he definitely used to.
Okay.
But, I mean, money-wise, this movie's making a lot. And I'm, again, not surprised by that at all. It's a formula that the studio knows is going to succeed, especially with the cast that they got. So its budget was $7 million. So far, it's made 35, almost 36 million. It's ranked 4th right now. And that's really only because it came out a couple weeks ago. So it made over 5 times its budget back already.
Wow. I mean, this is, I think, you're saying that it seems to be a subgenre. This kind of reminds me of the horror subgenre, where you can make it for relatively low budget and make your budget back, a couple times over, even with a mild performance. Not saying the 35 million is bad, but it's not Avengers numbers.
No. Yeah, I mean, like objectively bad or not, and I think it is. This was basically a guaranteed win for the studio, so I'm not at all surprised by these numbers.
So I am guessing you would not recommend people to go check it out.
No, like I said, if you're into this, like if you like all the other movies that fall into this category, then go for it. I'm sure you'll love it. But I mean, if you're just looking for, like, if you're out on a Saturday and you're like, oh, what should we watch? Maybe skip past this one.
This week, Christian, you watched the HBO document The Inventor. What is that?
It's wild, is what it is. So it's a documentary about a woman named Elizabeth Holmes and her company Theranos, which is a mashup of therapy and diagnosis, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's another scam story, because we love a good true crime scam story on this podcast and in general. So it's kind of the next big thing that's swept certain corners of the internet after the Firefest documentaries, which we talked about, and the Abducted in Plain Sight documentary, which we talked about. So her deal was she dropped out of school and decided to start a company that would revolutionize the lab testing industry by being able to test for 200 different diseases through an amount of blood you could get from a finger poke instead of an IV blood draw.
So Elizabeth Holmes, correct me if I'm wrong, is she the one who got like flack a couple months ago for speaking in a much lower voice?
Yes, that is definitely her.
Okay, I knew like I heard this name recently. Wow, lot going on in her life.
Yeah, so she's currently in court dealing with this situation. She's pled not guilty, but essentially she made this company. She said she had this device that she had dreamed up called the Edison that would be able to test blood in these tiny, tiny samples. And you wouldn't have to do like an IV blood draw anymore. You could just do a finger prick like for a diabetes like blood sugar test kind of thing. And literally every expert that she talked to told her that this was completely impossible, that you can't use such a tiny amount of blood to test for really anything, let alone 200 different things at once. And she just kind of told them to shut up and dream with her, basically. She had people from the engineering department coming to her and telling her that the box that she wanted to put this device in, the dimensions of it were basically impossible to make something that could fit in these dimensions that could do this. Just from a physics thermodynamic standpoint, it couldn't be done. And so she told that guy to shut up and basically like pushed him out and rehired somebody that would tell her what she wanted to hear. It got so bad that one of the advisors that she had kept telling her that this wasn't going to work, and she kept like pushing him further and further out of the main circle of the company. And then he was going to file a lawsuit and ended up committing suicide because he just couldn't handle like the stress of being in this situation.
Man, we really ragged on Billy McFarland for Fire Festival, and reprehensible dude. But at the end of the day, he stole hedge fund money, and no one really got hurt. Like this woman is really putting people's lives at risk who are relying on this technology.
Yeah, so there's two halves to this. Like, it's true. Like Firefest was kind of innocuous. He stole a bunch of money from a bunch of kids who didn't know what to do with all the money they had, and nobody was ever in any real danger. They just had to spend the night in those hurricane shelters or whatever they were. Whereas this is something a lot more serious because, yeah, you're testing blood, you're doing lab results to tell if people have diseases. And what ended up bringing the company down eventually was that the results were coming back wrong. They were getting tested here with the Edison, or I mean, they were getting told they were being tested by the Edison when in reality they weren't because the Edison couldn't exist. And then they were getting tested elsewhere through like an actual company, and the results were coming back not the same. And so that's what eventually brought the spotlight down on them. But there's so many different facets to this story. It's kind of the story that never ends. The other side of it is that you never get the feeling, even with all of these interviews, because they never interview her specifically for this documentary. They use a bunch of footage of other interviews with her. But you get the feeling through all the interviews they do of the people around her that she never had malicious intent. Like, she wasn't out to just make money. It was more a situation of she just kept telling lie after lie after lie to stall until she could finally get this thing to work, which was just never going to happen. And you got the sense that she never really believed that this was a pipe dream. Like, she always thought that they were just out of reach of being able to make this thing work.
Yeah, you said she's in a court case. I mean, granted, she didn't have malicious intent, but she's going to be put on, like, at the very least, a reasonable person standard, and she's going to get hit with negligence for how she's like misleading people, regardless of if she believes it. A reasonable person would not believe, with all the information she was getting, that this could happen. Like, she is in trouble in this court case.
Yeah, I know they said it was fraud and it was one or two other things, and her and the other guy who was in charge of the company both pleaded not guilty. So we'll see how it shakes out. I guess I can't imagine it's going to be anything other than awful, especially because she had some high level people involved in this company as like board members. The Secretary of Defense up till the beginning of this year, Jim Mattis was a board member for a while. Henry Kissinger was a board member for a while. She had a bunch of Silicon Valley guys who were boards members, and as time went on, each of them kind of decided, "No, I'm out," and they kind of stepped away. And I think when they started jumping ship, she lost a lot of protection that she had in like an oversight way.
Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous. There's a certain point where you cannot keep just promising stuff that you know is impossible. Like that is on her. It's a good idea, in theory, but you have to be practical at some point. And you said she was a college dropout. Was her major even in like biology or anything like that?
I can't honestly remember. I think it might have just been for business. But yeah, like I said, there's layer after layer to this. Like they partnered with Walgreens because they were going to send every Walgreens in the world an Edison so that people could just order their own blood tests and just go up and have it done like it was a normal thing. And then they had to like back out and start doing IV draws at Walgreens because, like I said, the Edison didn't exist. So these people were going up and expecting to just get a finger prick, and then they were having to get real blood drawn, and they were throwing a fit. And so as the card castle started to fall apart, they managed to raise, I think they said $900 million.
Oh,
And over the course of like the next 2 years, it all disappeared because 300 million alone went to just settling lawsuits and refunding all the patients in Arizona for the Walgreens where they set them up. It's just crazy.
could you imagine going for a test and then having to give blood in a Walgreens? Like, I want to try. I don't want to give blood about some serious disease I might have in a Walgreens.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things they had to hire this woman to drive around Arizona and basically train these Walgreens employees to draw blood correctly.
If I was a Walgreens employee, I wouldn't want to draw blood. Like you're a farm tech or whatever. You're not like learning. Like I'm taking blood now.
Yeah, it was crazy. This was an interesting documentary because the first half of it focused mostly on her and about her vision and her her charisma and how she was able to get these people to agree to these things. And a lot of the people they interviewed were like worshipful, and it was kind of weird to watch. But then the second half of it was just about the scam and how everything started to fall apart, and that's when it got interesting because just watching them try to scramble to like stay one step ahead of the Wall Street Journal or whoever was publishing articles about them. The Journal came out with a story that basically said like everything she's told you is nonsense. You guys need to get out while you can. Nobody go do this. And she was on TV like the next day, like the Wall Street Journal's lying. Don't believe them.
Yeah, man. I feel like if your company is so dependent on one person just being a charismatic, essentially cult leader, you're not necessarily in a good position with your money right there. Especially if that's like your driving force. I can understand if it's just the face and you have like a whole network set up behind the scenes. But if she seems like she's running everything and is not doing the right thing, like man, oh my gosh, that's insane.
Yeah, they described the company. The one ex-employee described the company as being a carpet world and a tile world. And in the tile world was the lab, and everybody knew that like the world was falling apart around them. Like everybody knew that this was a sinking ship. And then you would walk to the other side of the building to like the business end, and she would convince you that everything was perfect, and everybody over there was still like fully on board.
Oh man.
They said like they stopped departments from working with each other. They were monitoring everything you said to other employees, and so since they stopped people from talking to each other, nobody could really get a sense of the scale of how bad things were.
I mean, number one, if you're working in a company and they're like, do not talk to the other department, that's a red flag, man. Like, how many successful companies implement a do not speak to someone in your own like company? That's a red flag to me.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it was kind of like the frog in boiling water situation, where when they started, everything was fine, and then over time, more and more of these like crazy, like hush hush policies got implemented until, and like by the time you realize something's wrong, like the one person said that she was being keylogged, so literally everything she typed into her computer was being monitored by somebody. She would email someone and not CC like the CEO, and she would get a response from them. So like they knew their email was being monitored. Like it was wild.
Man. Would you recommend this?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because this is still ongoing. Like I remember when this story broke last year, and they were talking about the crazy woman who came up with this blood test scam. And so when I saw that HBO did a documentary about it, I was excited for it.
Yeah, I am going to have to check this out. This sounds like something right up my alley.
When news came out like last week, I think that she's engaged now.
Huh. Just in time for jail.
That's what somebody on Twitter, when it was a news article, it was like, Elizabeth Holmes is engaged. What do we know about her fiance? And somebody on Twitter wrote, we know he doesn't have an HBO subscription.
That's good. Moving into video game news, Borderlands 3 was announced last week in PAX East, and I know we've talked about Borderlands a little bit on this show, Christian, so we don't really have to talk a ton about it, but so they basically just released a trailer for Borderlands 3. It looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like it's actually strayed too far from Borderlands 2. The art style is still the same. And I'm interested to see how this story goes because we talked previously about the game Tales from the Borderlands, how it drastically changes the world. And I'm curious to see if that will be canon. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not really a Borderlands guy, are you?
No, I had tried the first game a couple of times, and I don't know what it was. I never really got into it. Maybe I should probably try it again now that I'm diving back into video games. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. This is one I'm definitely going to have to wait on the reviews for. I really like the first Borderland, which is actually getting a remaster. They also announced that, but I didn't love Borderlands 2 all that much. I never even really finished the game. It just seemed like too much, too grindy or something. I couldn't get into it, but I did really like the Telltale game, Tales from the Borderlands, because I did like the story in that one. So I'll see on this one if I jump back into it or not once I get some reviews on it or see some more previews.
I know I have a bunch of friends that are going to be real excited about this. I have 3 or 4 friends that really love the Borderlands.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. If you like the game, you most people really like it. Like they're into it. They have raid bosses at the end and stuff, and it's a looter shooter. You're getting a lot of different guns. Their big marketing on this one is there's over 1 billion guns in the game, so some form of combination of guns. They're huge number. And then some people I read online were disappointed by the reveal and were saying it was just looked like expansion of Borderland 2. But I think you got to give this some time. We didn't really see any gameplay, so I don't think anyone should be jumping to conclusions until they at least either see gameplay or get to do a demo or something like that.
Yeah.
In other video game news, Bruce Campbell will be reprising his role as Ash Williams in the upcoming DLC for the game Dead by Daylight. And I haven't really played Dead by Daylight, but this actually made me think of an interesting topic. Christian, which movie character would you like to see become either DLC of a video game or that would be in a video game that, it's not a video game about that character. They just make a cameo.
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know. Maybe because it's just on my mind because we had just mentioned it as we were starting the recording, but maybe Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing.
Ooh, oh, that's right. It is Hugh Jackman. Is it? I thought it was Vigo.
No, it's Hugh Jackman.
No, dude, I was so wrong. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. There was actually a Van Helsing game though for the PS2, I think.
Yeah. I always jump to Lord of the Rings when I think about movies first, but they've made so many Lord of the Rings games now. I feel like that doesn't really count.
I'd like to see Jon Snow in Lord of the Rings. Sean Bean's character in the two Sean Beans. No. My two big ones actually. Bruce Campbell's up there just because I'm a huge fan of the Evil Dead series and Army of Darkness, and they did get their own Evil Dead games. But I somewhat have considered picking up this game just to check it out. But I think my actual answer for something that does not exist is, I think Vin Diesel as Dominic Toretto in like a GTA or Just Cause game would be awesome.
Put him in anything, or like Hobbs from the Rock's character from any of the Fast and Furious is like. I would love it if it was just like I was walking through Horizon Zero Dawn and one of the mugs that I had to find had just had the Rock on it. That would be awesome.
Yeah, just anyone really from the Fast and Furious universe. I mean, the obvious I think would be like Need for Speed or something like that. But dude, if you have Toretto in a game, you definitely need a button dedicated to you just pushing him and him talking about family.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I thought would be pretty awesome of just characters who should not be in games.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Family, it's important, Brian. Family. I gotta rewatch those movies. I cannot wait till uh, Hobbs and Shaw or whatever, the one with Diesel and or The Rock and Jason Statham comes out.
My God, I know. It's like top 3 movies I'm excited for this year are Endgame, Hobbs and Shaw, and Frozen 2.
I am like way more excited for Hobbs and Shaw than I am Endgame. I love those movies. They're so insane. They're the only movies I will go see like a midnight showing for because they're so ridiculous.
We just updated the trailer pack of previews that we show in the lobby at work here, and it's got Hobbs and Shaw in there. And every time I hear the little jingle at the beginning of the trailer, I'm like, oh, yes. No customers better come in. I'm watching this now.
Nice. In our final gaming news, the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Games with Gold free games for this month have been announced. So for PlayStation Plus is Conan Exile and The Surge. And I know you just got your system, Christian. These are a little bit older, but have you heard of either of these games?
I've not. I meant to. I'm meaning on checking them out when I get home tonight. I kind of dawned on me halfway through the game that this was a new month now.
Yeah, I don't know much about The Surge. I looked at it; it looks kind of generic, so I don't know if I could recommend it or not. Conan Exile actually looked pretty cool when it came out. So Conan Exile, I know this game because they apparently have a character editor or character creator, and they have a very detailed penis creator in it. So there's that on that one if anyone's interested. I think it's supposed to be like an MMO or something or D&D style where you play with other people in it, but yeah, that's that's the only thing I remember about that game. I think it was generally well received otherwise. Uh, and then Xbox Games with Gold, they are releasing the Technomancer, Outcast Second Contact, Star Wars Battlefront 2 from the original Xbox game, and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon. Of those, I heard the Technomancer is pretty cool. I never played it. Don't know much about Outcast, but Star Wars Battlefront 2 for like the original Xbox was a pretty good game.
I had Battlefront 2. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I know a lot of people were really disappointed with the newer Battlefront from, I believe, 2017, or sorry, Battlefront 2 from 2017. And, you know, you'd see all these memes about like how Battlefront 2 had way more stuff in it. So I know it's generally positively received on the internet. All right, now it's time for our Amazon review game. Just a quick recap on the rules. I'm going to read a 5-star Amazon review for a movie. Christian will get 2 yes or no questions to help him narrow down what the movie is. He can then request me to read another review. He'll get 2 more yes or no questions and then can request a third review, and then we'll get 2 more questions and then has to guess. Christian, are you ready?
I am ready.
I, on average, buy 6 to 7 horror movies a month on DVD or Blu-ray and probably watch 2 to 3 movies every 2 days, most of which are horror/thriller. I'm well versed in the genre. And although this is not the scariest movie, the goriest movie, the highest production value, or the lowest B movie retro chic production value. This movie is what it is, and it does it so perfectly. It is deeply satisfying and enjoyable watch from start to finish. It's also an amazingly insightful movie that made even myself sit back and reflect on my own thoughts and actions day to day. Don't pass this film up. It's guaranteed to become a classic that is talked about for decades to come.
Ooh, man. Horror movie. Is this movie from 2010 or sooner?
So do you mean between 2010 and now or before 2010?
Yes. 2010 and now.
Yes, it is between 2010 and now. It was released between 2010 and now.
Is this movie part of a larger series?
No, not officially.
Then I'm going to need another review.
Okay. Hands down the best movie of 2017. The Shape of Water was good, but this movie is great. Don't miss it. For those viewers who think they won't like it because there is a horror component, fear not. I thought the same and was talked into seeing it by the universal nagging from everyone I know who had seen it. I liked it so much I may watch it again.
Holy crap. So just based on what that one, is this movie straight horror?
It's not straight horror in the traditional horror sense. But I think it would be classified as a horror thriller mystery.
Man, I think I'm going to kick myself when I hear this. Man, I don't even have another... Yeah, you know what? Just go ahead and give me one more review.
Okay. All I can say is Civil Rights meets the Stepford Wives in a very unexpected way. I love the lead character, Chris. Additionally, Catherine Keenan picks a very interesting role. I should have realized what was coming when I realized she was in the film. I was uncomfortable during the whole movie because the inability of white characters to speak to Chris as a man rather than a black man and treat him like a human being rather than a black human being.
Get Out.
Yes.
Oh, man, I can't believe that came out in 2017. I thought it was just last year.
Oh, let's see. It is definitely 2017, but it might have been... When was its theatrical release? No, February 24th, 2017.
Yeah, I'm just bad with time.
I haven't actually seen it, so I don't think it's like a traditional horror movie, but everyone I talk to, I believe, says it's a horror movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, to be honest. But
I'm sorry, Christian. I thought you would have.
You know, I wanted to. It just kind of never happened for me.
Yeah,
and now that his new one is out now, Us, which I've also heard is outstanding.
Yeah, well, that's what made me think of doing it, because I was like, I don't think they're in the same universe, but I actually don't know.
Yeah, no, I think they're, as far as I know, they're completely separate. Yeah, I definitely should have gotten it, especially with how much I've been talking about Us and Get Out in the past week and a half.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we head out, Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
Well, Shazam comes out this week, so I'm probably going to watch that. That's the new superhero DC movie. I think it's supposed to be part of the DC extended universe. Like, I think it's supposed to feed into, like, Justice League stuff, but I'm not 100% sure. I guess I'll find out this week. Other than that, there's a movie with Alison Brie and Samuel L. Jackson coming out that isn't Captain Marvel called Unicorn Store. That's a Netflix original. I'm probably going to try and watch that. That comes out on the 5th. And I finished Horizon Zero Dawn, at least the story. I still have, I think, 3 trophies left to pick up. So I'll probably try to finish platinuming that and then maybe move on to Spider-Man.
Cool. We should talk about Horizon next week whenever you finish up with it.
Yeah, I finished the whole story. I'm trying to work through the ultra hard New Game Plus now.
Oh, dude, you're going for like the DLC stuff.
Yeah.
This week, I am continuing watching Marvel movies. I am up to Thor, and I'm hoping to get through. I think Iron Man 3 is on my list. Um, by the end of the week, I am going out of town this weekend, so that might stymie my ability to do so. Otherwise, I've been watching the past season of Broad City. My roommate has it on, had bought it, so we've been watching that. It's been pretty good. I've been watching some Trailer Park Boys, which is a great show. If no one's ever watched it, I'm probably never going to review it just because I watch it so sporadically. I don't know if I could give a true review of it, but it's very funny. And then otherwise, I'm still working my way through Near Automata. I'm almost done with my second playthrough, and then I'll be going on to my third one, and then any cleanup. So it's pretty fun game. I'm excited to talk about it once I finish it. I was hoping to finish it this week, but because I'm out of town, I don't know if I actually will be able to or not.
Nice.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you want to contact us to give us a suggestion for the Amazon review game, you can reach us at Twitter. We are at Gambots Network, or you can email us at gambots.blog@gmail.com. All right, guys, thanks for checking us out.
Thank you.